Okay, let's get into it. My name's Chelsea. I'm 32. And if you're looking for some perfect, teary-eyed story about how I realized I was wrong and we rode off into the sunset, you're in the wrong place. This is about how a great thing got ruined, and it wasn't even my fault. Not really. It was just life. Or, more specifically, it was how people, including my ex-husband, couldn't handle life getting a little complicated. It started with a tiny crack. We were fine. You know, not like in the movies, but real life good. We had a nice little place, a dog, and we didn't hate each other on a daily basis. My husband, Luke, he's 34, and he's one of those guys who's just solid, like a rock. He's got this quiet, steady presence that I always found calming. He's a good man, a hard worker, and he's not a screamer. He just takes things in and processes them, which, looking back, might have been the problem. He's the type of guy who would rather internalize a problem for a month than have one big, explosive fight. On the other hand, I'm more of a get it all out there kind of person. The crack showed up after my brother, David, got into some trouble. He's always been the black sheep of the family. And this time, he'd gotten himself a gambling problem that turned into a debt problem. It was a bad situation, and my parents were ready to cut him off. But he's my brother. I couldn't just stand by and watch him get eaten alive. So, I took some money from our joint savings. Not a huge amount, but enough to get him a lawyer and buy him some time. I figured I would just tell Luke about it later. After the dust had settled, we'd figure it out. When I finally did tell him, it was a disaster. He didn't yell. He just got this really distant look in his eyes, like he was in a different room. He said, "Chelsea, we were saving that for a down payment on a house. We talked about this." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, but this is an emergency. It's my brother." He just kept saying, "It's our money." It was so clinical, like he was talking about a spreadsheet, not about my family. He didn't even ask how David was doing. The whole thing was just about the money. I felt like he was more worried about a number in a bank account than he was about me and my family, so I got mad. I told him he was being selfish, that he didn't have to worry about the money. I'd pay it back. I knew I couldn't. Not all of it. Not quickly. But I was just trying to get him to see my side of it. He just shook his head and walked away. After that, things got weird. It was like there was a wall between us. He'd come home from work, and instead of asking about my day, he'd go straight to the couch and start playing a game on his phone. We'd eat dinner in silence, or with the TV on, and he'd just be a million miles away. I'd try to talk to him, to get him to open up, but he'd just give me one-word answers. It was like he was punishing me, but without actually saying it. I started feeling like I was walking on eggshells. One day, I was looking through his phone for a takeout menu, and I saw a text from a coworker. Her name was Jenna. It was a joke about a meeting they'd been in. Nothing really, but it was just so easy and friendly. The kind of conversation we used to have. It hit me like a ton of bricks. He was laughing and talking with her, but he was completely shut down with me. I felt this rush of anger and jealousy. Why was he giving her his time and energy, but not me? I brought it up that night, not in a calm way. I was a little drunk, and I basically accused him of having an affair. He looked at me like I was insane. "Are you serious?" We talked about a project for 10 minutes. I didn't believe him. I mean, maybe they weren't sleeping together, but it was still a betrayal. He was emotionally cheating on me. He was getting his emotional needs met by someone else. I kept pushing, demanding to see his phone. He just shook his head, looking so disappointed. "Chelsea, what's happening to us?" he said. I told him he was the one who changed, that he was the one who was pushing me away. He just sighed and went to the spare bedroom to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and the house was silent. He was gone. He didn't leave a note or anything. Just his side of the bed was empty. I felt this wave of panic and guilt, but I also felt a little bit of pride. I wasn't going to chase after him. I wasn't going to beg for him to come back. If he was so ready to just leave, then maybe our marriage wasn't as strong as I thought it was. He came back a few days later, but it wasn't the same. He was still distant, and he started working longer hours. He was always too busy to talk, or too tired. I felt like a roommate, not a wife. And the money thing, he kept bringing it up, not in a confrontational way, but in a passive-aggressive, "Oh, we can't afford that because of the lawyer's fees" kind of way. It was a constant reminder of my mistake. I started getting more and more resentful. I felt like I was being punished for trying to do a good thing. I started going out more with my friends. I got back in touch with my old college group, and we'd go out for drinks and just complain about our lives. It felt good to be around people who understood me, who didn't judge me. We'd just vent, and it was a relief. One night, I got a text from an old friend, Mark. He was one of my best friends in college, and we'd always had a flirtatious dynamic. We hadn't talked in years, but he saw my pictures on Instagram and reached out. We started texting every day, and it was so easy. It felt like coming home. We'd talk about everything: our jobs, our families, our regrets. He was going through a tough time with his girlfriend, and we just clicked. Luke didn't even seem to notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. He was too busy being a martyr about our finances. So, I just kept talking to Mark. It felt like an escape. It felt like someone finally saw me again. One night, after a particularly bad argument with Luke about my spending habits, I met Mark for a drink. We talked for hours, and I told him everything. He just listened, and he was so understanding. He said, "Chelsea, you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be with someone who appreciates you." And it was like he was giving me permission to be unhappy, to be a person with my own needs and desires, not just Luke's wife. We had a few too many drinks, and one thing led to another. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed, feeling an overwhelming mix of guilt, regret, and a little bit of defiance. I was a mess. When Luke came into the room, I just started crying. He looked at me, and his face went blank. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just said, "I'm going to work," and he left. I felt like he knew. He didn't say a word, but the silence was deafening. I thought he would confront me, yell at me, something, but he just kept going to work, coming home late, and being a ghost in our own house. I started thinking that maybe I did it because I wanted him to react. I wanted him to care enough to be angry. Then, one day, I found a little pamphlet on his nightstand. It was for a therapist. I felt a surge of anger. He was talking to a professional about our problems, but he wouldn't talk to me. He was getting help for himself, but he was leaving me out of it. It was so selfish. He was trying to fix himself, but he didn't even think to ask me what I thought. He was just doing his own thing, and it was driving a wedge even deeper between us. I confronted him about the therapist, and he just looked at me. "Chelsea, I've been trying to get you to talk for months. I've been trying to fix things, but you won't meet me halfway. I'm trying to figure out what to do." And I was like, "Oh, so this is about me. This is my fault." He just looked at me, and he finally said it. "I don't think I can do this anymore." That was it. That was the end. He said we needed to separate. I was so mad. I told him he was giving up. I told him he was being a coward. He just looked at me and said, "I'm not a coward. Chelsea, I'm just tired." And he left. He didn't pack a suitcase or a duffel bag. He just walked out the door with his phone and his wallet. For a few weeks, I was a wreck. I called my mom, but she just told me I should have been more supportive of Luke. I told her he was the one who was shutting me out, and she just said, "Well, maybe if you hadn't given all that money to David, he wouldn't have been so stressed." My own mother was taking his side. My friends tried to be supportive, but they didn't really get it. They just said, "He'll come back." But I knew he wouldn't. I had a feeling he was gone for good. I tried to keep a brave face, but inside I was falling apart. I would check my phone all the time, hoping for a text from him, but nothing. It was just silence. I felt so alone. I tried to talk to Mark, but he was busy dealing with his own relationship drama. He wasn't there for me like I thought he would be. I felt like I was completely alone in this. Then, one day, I got a text from Luke. It was just a picture. It was him and another woman, a pretty blonde, sitting in a coffee shop. She was holding a coffee cup with a little heart drawn on it. It was a selfie, and they both looked so happy. He didn't say anything, just sent the picture, and I just stared at it, feeling this deep, cold shock. He had moved on so fast. He hadn't even cared about our marriage enough to fight for it. He'd just replaced me. A few months went by, and I started hearing things through the grapevine. Luke was dating that girl, the one from the picture. Her name was Sarah. She worked in accounting, and apparently, she was really nice. She was a good listener, and she was always so positive. I heard from a mutual friend that she was really good for him, that he seemed so much happier. That's when I really started to get mad. It wasn't just about him moving on. It was about him finding happiness with someone else. Someone who was so simple. I mean, she worked in accounting. She probably never had to deal with anything complicated. And I just thought, he gets to have a perfect, easy life with her, while I'm stuck here, trying to pick up the pieces. I started to feel this deep bitterness. Every time I'd hear something about them, it would just fuel my resentment. He had just given up on our life together. He hadn't even tried to understand my side of things. He just wanted a perfect, easy relationship. And when things got hard, he just bailed. Then, about 6 months after he left, I got a letter from a lawyer. It was a letter from his lawyer about the divorce. He wanted a clean break. He wanted the house sold, the assets divided, everything gone. And I just thought, he doesn't even want to talk to me. He's just going to handle this with a lawyer. It was so impersonal, so cold. I met with my own lawyer, and we started the process. The whole time, I was just seething. I felt like I was being punished for all of his problems. I had been the one to try to fix things, to try to get him to open up, and he was the one who was getting a new life, a new girlfriend, and a clean slate. I was the one who was left with the mess. I heard from a friend of a friend that Luke and Sarah were getting engaged. They had only been dating for a few months, and they were already taking that step. And I just thought, he never would have done that with me. He always wanted to take it slow. He always wanted to be financially stable first. But with her, it was different. With her, he was ready. And it just proved my point. He was the one who wasn't ready before. He was the one who wasn't committed to our relationship. He just wasn't in it to win it with me. So, I had to watch him get his happily ever after. While I was left with a broken marriage and a pile of lawyer's bills, I felt like the whole world was on his side. He was the good guy, and I was the bad guy. And I just couldn't understand why. I wasn't the one who gave up. I wasn't the one who bailed at the first sign of trouble. I was the one who was trying to fight for us. I was telling a friend about it a few weeks ago, and she said, maybe he just needed a fresh start. Chelsea, maybe he just needed someone who was a better fit. And I just looked at her. I thought, a better fit. What does that even mean? It just sounds like an excuse for him being a coward. He found someone who was easy, someone who didn't challenge him, someone who didn't have a complicated family. And he just took the easy way out. I don't regret helping my brother. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I don't regret talking to Mark, because it was nice to feel seen again. I don't regret anything I did, because I was just trying to live my life. What I regret is that Luke couldn't handle it. What I regret is that he didn't love me enough to fight for me. He just gave up, and now, he gets to live his perfect little life, while I'm stuck here, still dealing with the fallout of his cowardice. He's the one who gave up, not me. He's the one who ruined our marriage, and he's the one who has to live with that. Not me. Not really.